Hello and welcome to Virtual Practice Makes Perfect for the Poll Pad voter check-in device. Normal election cycle, we give you plenty of opportunities to get your hands on this important device, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're not able to do that. So we wanted to do the next best thing, which is provide you this virtual practice session. You'll be able to watch as I go through various check-in scenarios and refresh your memory on how we deal with all the various categories of voters that we serve. Let's jump right in by refreshing your memory about the Poll Pad and its physical characteristics. Now, at its base level, Poll Pad is a standard off-the-shelf Apple iPad, and that means it comes with a few features and characteristics that we can use, including the touchscreen on the front and the camera on the back. Now, to make that useful, we add a swivel stand that allows us to swivel the device around to get those voter signatures that are important. And then also we have the camera on the back that we can use to scan barcodes on the back of a Kansas driver's license, non-driver's ID card, or concealed carry permit. To help make that easier, we also add an ID tray that we can direct the voters to place their IDs upon if they're willing to let us scan it. This Get Started screen is the first screen you'll see if you're responsible for setting up the poll pads in your location. If you power them on and hit the app icon to open the app, you'll see this screen right here. We want you to do a couple of things. First of all, we want you to confirm both the date of the election, the name of the election, and importantly, the location you're working at. We must make sure that the right poll pads arrived at the right location. Secondly, we'd like you to go up toward the top where it says precinct records, countywide records, and check-in count, and verify those numbers. Most importantly, the check-in count must equal 0 first thing in the morning. Finally, I'll direct your attention to the very top row where those three icons live: the printer, the cloud, and the people with the dots between them. The first one is your printer icon. That indicates whether your printer is currently connected and ready to print. Your goal is to have a green icon all day long. If it's ever yellow or red, it's probably not going to print when you finish the check-in process. The middle icon there with the cloud in my screenshot is green, but on election day, from the moment you start up to the moment you close, it will be red. It's because we are not issuing hotspots this election year, and so you will not have Wi-Fi access within the polling place. It is expected behavior. You do not need to call us. It's going to be red from the moment you start to the moment you end. The third icon, though, should also be green. Just like your printer, it's going to indicate whether or not your poll pad is communicating with the other poll pad in your location. Those two poll pads, since they are set to the same election and the same location, will create a private network between the two where they can share check-in information back and forth all day long. When you hit Get Started, you end up at a screen like this. This is where we live most of our day. It's where we start with every single voter. And it allows us to choose how we're going to find our voters, either by scanning a barcode on the back of those applicable IDs, or by tapping manual entry and searching a few characters of the last name, a few characters of the first name. Another thing you can do from this screen is a test print. I recommend you do this first thing in the morning once you've got your poll pad set up. It allows you to verify that your printer is ready to go, it's turned on, it's connected, and that when you hit print, it's going to, in fact, print. So simply tap on the icon and hit Print Test Receipt, and a little ticket will pop out telling you that the printer is working. That is great. You can toss that in the trash. It's not necessary to keep it. Just simply tap outside of that box, and you're ready for your first voter. Our first voter comes in, gets to the front of the line, and we ask him to show photo ID, and so he holds up his Kansas driver's license for us. His name is Carter Perfect. We ask him if he'll place that ID on the tray after we've looked at the picture and made sure it's consistent with his appearance. He's okay with doing that, and so we will tap Scan Barcode. That is going to activate the camera on the back of our device and zoom in, focus on the barcode, and in fact, read the information there to find our voter. We see him in the list, and so we'll tap on his name. And now we begin our normal process. We verify with the voter their name and address, ask them to state their current name and address. If everything matches up, and in this case it does, we'll go up and tap Accept. At that point, we'll swivel the device around and direct Carter to pick up a pen, the stylus pen's available, and place his signature upon that record. When he's done, we'll tap Done Signing. The poll worker confirmation screen, we will put our initials into the box because we did in fact see his photo ID, and then we'll ask him how he wishes to mark his ballot, be it a machine ballot or a paper ballot. We'll make that selection and print his ballot ticket. His ballot ticket comes out and it lists all the information we need to issue him the correct ballot. In this case, as a Republican-affiliated voter, he will receive the ballot for his precinct and his party, a Republican ballot for precinct N6041. It also shows our initials and his voting method, in this case a machine. And so we'll hand this ticket to the voter attendant, who will take Mr. Carter over to the machine and get him set up to vote. With our first voter gone, we can call forward our next voter. Our next voter's name is Julie Voter. Julie comes in and we ask her for photo ID, and she presents her photo ID for us to view. We take a look at it and make sure the picture presented is consistent with her appearance, and then we'll begin to look her up. We'll do another manual search, and so we'll type in a few characters of her last name and a few characters of her first name and hit search. When we do so, we find that she is in fact registered to vote, and so we'll tap on her name and again verify her name and address with her verbally. Since everything she says is consistent with what we see, we'll tap Accept and then swivel the device around and get her signature. When she's done, we'll tap Done Signing, and then we'll put in our initials indicating we looked at and verified her photo ID. We'll ask her how she wishes to mark her ballot, in this case another machine voter, and so we'll hit Submit and print out her ballot ticket. Again, her ballot ticket has all the information we need to issue her the ballot. In this case, she'll be marking that ballot on the machine, and so we'll send this with the voter attendant over to an unoccupied machine to activate their ballot session and begin marking it. Our next voter comes up, we ask for photo ID, and she shows us her ID, and we find out that we are working with Elizabeth Democracy. Elizabeth shows us this ID, we look at the picture, make sure it's consistent with her appearance, and then we'll begin to look her up. We'll tap Manual Entry and type in a few characters of her last name and a few characters of her first name, and then hit Search. When we do so, we see that she is registered, but she has been issued an advance ballot by mail. When we tap on her name, we see two options, Process Provisionally or Close. Since Miss Democracy does wish to mark a ballot with us, we will check her in as a provisional ballot, and we will get her signature along the bottom of the screen. Now, all provisional voters will sign the poll pad, and they will also go over and fill out the standard provisional envelope at the ballot table. We'll tap Done Signing here. We'll put in our initials indicating that we showed photo ID, and then we'll choose paper for her voting method. As a provisional voter, their only option will be a paper ballot. They cannot use the touchscreen voting machine. And so her ballot ticket prints out. It's labeled at the top provisional, and it has, again, the information we need to issue her that provisional ballot so that she can mark it, seal it inside her filled-out provisional envelope, and drop it in the red official ballot bag. We'll send this ticket with the voter attendant and Miss Democracy over to get set up at the ballot table with all of that paperwork. Our next voter comes forward. We ask for photo ID, and he shows us his photo ID here. We see his name is Cameron Voter. We'll take a look at the picture, make sure it's consistent with his appearance, and then we'll begin the lookup process. We'll do another manual search, and we'll type in a few characters of his last name, Voter, and a few characters of his first name, Cameron. When we hit search, we find that there are no matching registered records. Now, we can always try Advance Options Date of Birth, which is really good in the case of a name change. As we continue through this process, we'll type in his date of birth and hit search. We'll see if there's anyone in the county that matches that date of birth, and in fact we find Cameron Delmer Change, and he tells us, yes, I did change my name not too long ago. And so we'll select that record, we'll verify address to make sure that hasn't also changed, and then we'll check him in as a provisional and choose the reason of name change. We'll hit Apply and Accept, get his signature along the bottom of the screen. When he is done signing, we'll go up and hit Done Signing. we do that, we'll end up at the poll worker confirmation, where we always put in our initials since we saw his photo ID. And again, as a provisional ballot voter, he will choose a paper ballot. We'll print out his ballot ticket. We'll hand that to the voter attendant, who will take him over to the ballot table to get started on the provisional paperwork. Our next voter's name is Janet Voter. She comes forward, shows us photo ID. We'll take a look at the picture, make sure it's consistent with her appearance, and we'll begin the check-in process. We'll type in a few characters of her last name, Voter, and her first name, Janet, and then we'll hit search. We do so, we find her in the system, we'll tap on her name and again verify verbally with her name and address. In this case, what she says to us does not match what we see on the screen. And so we will have to do a provisional and do an address change. Again, her address has changed. And so we'll choose provisional, address change, get her signature on the screen, go through the rest of our normal process, placing our initials on the record since we saw her photo ID. We'll go down, we'll choose paper as her voting method, and we'll print out her ballot ticket. Now the only problem with this ballot ticket is in the instance of an address change, the precinct is very likely not correct. So we don't want to just send that off with her to the ballot table to get a wrong ballot. We're going to try and find her correct precinct. To do that, we are going to do a precinct finder search. We'll go up and hit menu up at the top left-hand corner and choose precinct finder. We'll ask her for her new address. So we'll type in 9012 and choose the street name. In this case, we're looking for 148th Terrace. We'll make that selection and hit search, and we'll see that she should not be in 604, but instead in 616. And so we'll make that change on the ballot ticket by crossing out the old precinct and writing in the new precinct. At that point, we can send her with the voter attendant over to the ballot table to get that new ballot. Our next voter comes in, we ask for photo ID, and unfortunately, she does not have one to show us. She tells us she forgot it at home and asks if she can still vote today. The answer to that, as with all voters, is absolutely. We're going to serve that voter the best way we can. In this case, we'll ask her for her name. We'll do a manual search, see if we can't find her in the database. This type, she tells us her last name is provisional, her first name is Madison. So we'll type in a few characters of each, and we find that she is in fact registered. Now we know at this point she's going to vote a provisional, but we'll still verify name and address, see if anything's changed. Then we'll go down and tap provisional, choose reason, no photo ID. We'll go up and hit apply, which will take us into that normal process. We'll hit accept here, go through and get her signature. She'll sign along the bottom of the screen with that brand new individually wrapped stylus pen. We'll tap done signing. In this case, we don't want to put our initials because this person has not shown photo ID. So to get past this box, we'll place a dot in the center of it and then choose paper as her voting method and go up and hit submit. When we do so, her ballot ticket prints out, again listing that she is a provisional voter. In fact, the reason for that provisional is no photo ID. We'll send her with a voter attendant over to the ballot table to get the paperwork started on her provisional envelope. Our next voter comes up, we ask for photo ID, and he shows us his ID. We see his name is Go Chiefs. We'll take a look at the picture to make sure it's consistent with his appearance. Once we've done that, we can begin to look him up by tapping manual entry, typing in a few characters of his last name, a few characters of his first name, and then hitting search. And again, we find that he is not in the system, and so we'll start a conversation with him, determine that we need to add him. So we'll tap the register button, type in his first name of Go, last name of Chiefs, hit next. We have to add his address, and so we'll ask him for his address at this point. We'll type that in, starting with the house number, tap in that box, switch to the numbers, and type in the address he tells us, in this case 9608. We'll click into the street name field, type in his street, 149th. It'll give us a couple of options. We'll choose the correct one. We'll hit next, which will then take us right into the provisional check-in process. We're going to add Go Chiefs to the database, allow him to select his party, get a signature for him, which he'll sign along the bottom of the screen. When he is finished signing, we'll go up and hit Done Signing. We'll put in our initials because he did in fact show us photo ID, and then we'll choose paper because he is a provisional voter. We'll hit Submit. His tickets will print out. The first one will be his standard ballot ticket. It will tell us which ballot he is supposed to get based on his address in the system. It does tell us that he is an added voter, automatic check-in, and it's also going to print out a declaration of political affiliation form for him. Because he was not in the system, he did not have a party affiliation, so it prints that out. You can take that and place it in the black recipe box, the check-in table. We'll send Mr. Chiefs over to the ballot table with our voter attendant to start on the provisional envelope paperwork and get finished with that process. Our final voter comes in for the day, and her name is Amanda Unaffiliated. She shows us her ID. We take a look at the picture, make sure it's consistent with her appearance, and then we'll begin the check-in process. We're doing another manual entry search, and so we'll type in a few characters of her last name, a few characters of her first name, and hit search. When we do that, we find that she is in the system. Tap on her name and begin verifying with her verbally her name and address. She'll read it off or state it, and we tap Accept. At this point, we see that she does not have a party affiliation. So we'll swivel the screen around and have her make her selection by tapping the correct button. We'll move forward and have her sign along the bottom. Now, it's important to point out that this screen, where they have the option to change or choose an affiliation, will only show up for unaffiliated voters. Poll Pad knows that rule. Final screen, we'll put in our initials, indicating we looked at her photo ID, and then ask her how she wishes to mark her ballot. In this case, she would like to use the machine. As a regular voter, she has that option. Her ballot ticket will print out, and again, she will get a ballot ticket and a declaration of political affiliation ticket. The first one goes with the voter attendant to get her set up on the machine to mark her ballot. The second one goes directly from the printer right into the black recipe box sitting on the check-in table. It'll live there with all of the other ones like it throughout the day, and at the end of the night, you'll pack them up in supplies to come back to the election office for processing. A few final reminders before you go. We want to remind you that every voter must show photo ID. This is a requirement of state law, and so we ask every voter for photo ID. In the case of someone like Madison, who forgot hers, we can do a provisional ballot. In the case of someone who has a religious objection to having their photograph taken, we can ask the supervising judge for a declaration of religious objection form and go through that process. Secondly, we always verify name and address verbally. We do not go by what address might be printed on the ID. We ask the voter to state their current name and address. Whatever they say must be consistent with what we see displayed on the poll pad. Finally, if you have any questions or problems while you're working at the check-in table, simply ask your supervising judge for assistance. He or she can help you in most cases, and if not, they'll call our office and get additional guidance. Finally, we just want to say thank you one more time. Thank you for joining us in this endeavor to give Johnson County voters an excellent voting experience on Election Day. We wish you the best of luck, and I hope that all of your voters are perfect and that the day goes very, very fast.